I jump into an employment tribunal and you think back some of the things you do and you're like, oh my God, probably should never have done that. And I have it with the LinkedIn thing. I'll have a comment ready to post and then I'll be like, oh, no, 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 no. Or I'll delete it because I'm like, this is the one that gets me cancelled. I really struggle to keep a straight face. That's the worst thing. But I do have that fear of, I don't actually know what else I would be doing.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest episode of But Is It Legal? The podcast brought to you by me, Simon Marshall, the founder of TBD Marketing. And today I've got a good friend and LinkedIn buddy, Jon Gregson, who's joining me. Jon, welcome.
Morning, thank you.
It's possible out there's some people who don't know who you are. So any chance you could introduce yourself and tell us what you do for a living?
Yeah, of course. So I am an employment lawyer, I guess, by day. That's the primary part of what my role is. So I'm a partner at Weightmans, I'm an employment lawyer. But I also am one of our kind of product and innovation partners at the same time as well. So I mix being an employment lawyer with a couple of our kind of big corporate clients with working with product innovation, I guess, part of our wider corporate structure across the firm as well.
Okay, well, I want to explore that with you a bit more later on. I'm not sure too many people have got that kind of joint role in the industry, so let's talk about that a bit more as well. What's the nature of the day-to-day practice in employment? What's the balance of your work? What do you do?
So I'm an employment tribunal litigator is the primary piece of what I do. So I act for respondent corporate clients, really, employment tribunal litigation on the side of that. So that's the bread and butter. Do a little bit of other stuff, but 95% of what I do is employment tribunal work.
Wonderful. Okay. And is that something that you'd always wanted to do whenever you were, is that the kind of advocacy work you wanted to do when you were a youngster and think about getting into the law?
Honest answer, no. Was there something else? Is there something else? No, I don't know. So I guess I'm probably a accidental employment lawyer is where it comes from. So didn't do employment law university and my law degree. I don't think I did it on my LPC, and I certainly didn't want to do it as part of my training contract. I think I'm far enough into this now. I can get away with saying that, kind of. Just wasn't part of something that was on the radar as to what I wanted to do, where I wanted to do, and I just landed here because one of my colleagues who's still with us, and actually she's got her own career now, is wanted to be in employment in that seat to then qualify into it, and obviously somebody needed to go here before her. That was me. I'm still here. No great yearning. That was what I wanted to be. Just in the right place at the right time, and then a lack of ambition to do anything else, I guess.
You're playing it down slightly. It does make me laugh. When you were first thinking about, what was it that prompted you to first think about getting into the legal sector? I think there's something in most of us as teenagers or as kids that makes us think that's the moment in which we decide you want to be a lawyer.
Yeah, so I think when it was kind of coming to what to do, careers and choices, so there was a few things. So there was a push at school for me, maybe go do English, and they said about, you could do that kind of Oxford. I was like, I'm nowhere near clever enough for that. Just no. I was quite interested in the IT piece, which probably brings me full circle to some of the innovation. Horrific at maths, like, pencil up nose at maths, just thick. So that went out the window very, very quickly when you realise that I was in the bottom group of GCSE maths where I couldn't get higher than a C. So IT went out the window. And then really, my dad was a policeman. So when it came to A-level choices, one of the things that my school did was A-level law. And I think there was probably a natural inclination of you could do a little bit of kind of criminal law in that A-level setting. That probably spoke to me an element of actually there's something probably there. So did A-level law. Actually not bad at it. And obviously there's a lot more outside of it than probably the what I'd grown up in and around in the criminal sense of that kind of thing. And it kind of just went from there, I guess. That led into a law degree. And yeah, just actually not bad at this. It took me from there.
Interesting. I think loads of lawyers have got some sense of familiarity with it as well. At least, I mean, like you say, that context of having a dad who's in the police, gives you the context in which you think I'd like to do that as well. Other people have incidents that happen to them in their teenage years as well. Does he approve of your career as a lawyer? Is he proud of you for what you do?
I'd like to think so. No, I think so. I think in some ways it's, again, he will obviously have been in that world, in and around it and stuff. So it's a, there was no way I was going to be a policeman, but I guess it's an extension of that. I guess it's part of that world in some respects with all of that thing. So no, absolutely. I'd done work experience and I'd done things in and around law as well, as he'd been able to kind of get me into some of that with completely different parts of the law, different world of all those kind of things. But yeah, it's just an interesting and a building on those kind of things is where it went for me.
Good. Tell us a bit about kind of landing at Weightmans and the seats that you did do. Tell us a bit about that. What did you enjoy doing when you got to Weightmans?
So everything I do makes my life sound like it's just an accident. So I'd had a couple of training contract interviews at other law firms, and then obviously Weightmans starts with a W, so you can tell how many it took before I got to Weightmans. I can never remember the name of that book that you have that has all the firms in that you used to go through at uni, but I'd gone through the applications everywhere, and then I used to volunteer at the CAB, at the Citizens Advice, actually, when I was at university. And I was on a course in India Buildings, where we used to be based in Liverpool, upstairs. And I remember we came downstairs at lunchtime and walked through the arcade. It was a beautiful building that Weightmans are in. And I remember walking past reception thinking, I haven't applied to there. I'm sure they went on the list of things. So the afternoon of said course, when probably should have been doing the course, printed off the application form. And then on my way home, literally handed it in to Weightmans. Didn't keep a copy of it or anything. And then couple of weeks later, got I think it was still phone calls in those days. Would you like to come in for a training contract interview?
Amazing.
Until the point of going, what did I kind of hold myself out as saying I could do on that application form? Because no idea. I was too busy trying to be on a course fill in. Anyway, must have put something in, or made something up. Got through to that. Landed at Weightmans. First seat, funnily enough, was in our police team. So that again immediately then spoke back to the world I'd grown up to, because we deal with complaints against the police and the things that come out of that. So that, I guess, from natural affinity. From that, I landed in our dedicated disease team, as opposed to undedicated disease. I'm not.
I want to know who named that team, John. I mean, it's like literally, it's the toughest team to want to choose on your seat rotation.
It was grim. But do you know what? It was. I always think you have to go and do something that, you know what, is a bit of a shock and maybe isn't going to set your world on fire.
Oh yeah.
That did. So I had that. And then my third seat was in employment. And then actually, probably the best thing that's ever really happened to my career was on a Friday night. Friday afternoon, I was told, we've got a client's secondment on the following Monday. Someone's just dropped out. Would you want to go? So, and it was in Luton, I think it was. So, from Friday to the Monday, I basically moved myself down to Luton for 6 months on a client's secondment.
Was that the fourth seat then?
Pretty much, yeah. You'd look back now and think, why did would I do that now? Probably not. But just did it because what's the worst that was going to happen? And that just threw me in the deep end out with a client. And I've never looked back from that. That just gave me what I needed to go and do. Put me in, front line on a HR help desk with a client. And that probably turned the employment law piece on again at that point. But that was the best thing I ever did. And then that probably opened the doors internally, Weightmans wise, that I was willing to go and do that. Just did it. And I say probably the best thing I ever did.
I like the idea of that fourth seat kind of placement, as it were. I think you're kind of ready for it by then, aren't you, as well? And it's probably a really good time before you go into qualifying to then go, okay, well, look, it's quite practical out here. People asking me actual real life problems here. You've got to deal with that.
I had no idea what I was doing. But you had to kind of grow up quite fast and then realize how you can do those things. And it gave you that ability to go and do that, the confidence in yourself that you can do it. And that independence, it was the best thing I've ever done. Absolutely was. I would always say to anyone who's go and do that kind of thing on a secondment piece. Absolutely.
So then come back into Weightmans, move back up from Luton, and then back into the office again, having selected employment law as the kind of thing you're going to pursue.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about, fast forward through that. I think people can read that on your
Yeah.
biography, don't worry. I mean, we don't think we need to go through that too much. But tell me a bit about this innovation, the product innovation. I'm really intrigued to know a bit more about that.
Yeah. So I've always, had, I guess, an interest in how we do stuff. I mean, the law is the easy bit. Of course, it is. You can get that anywhere. A lot for me is about the client service, how we do it, the way we work. Why do you want to come here? Why do you want to work with us? Um,
Right.
then there's always that internal bit about, how we work. Inevitably there's pressures on how we do things. Can we do things in more efficient ways, more profitable ways? And I've always had an interest in how we can do that kind of stuff and different ways of doing it. That probably has naturally evolved over time into some of the tech ways of doing things, the innovative ways of doing it. That's just naturally my own progression. And then about 5 years ago, as a firm, we invested in our product innovation team in itself, which is through Cat Wolfenden, Stu Whittle. That as a team grew out, and then just over 2 years ago now, they kind of went, well, actually, we need to do something with the partners as well and the actual case handlers, the fee earners. So they brought in these 6 specific roles of going, you're still actually practicing lawyers, you still do the work, you're still actually doing your job, but you've got a role where you speak to the clients, you speak to the client partners. And the way I describe it is I join the dots between the clients, the client partners, the innovation team, the product managers, marketing, all those different people I need to get in the room. I get the right people in the room at the right time so that when we're trying to do things, we're developing products, we're trying to roll them out, you've got the right people there, we're asking the right questions, you drive it in the right way. You take the fear piece out of actually going to speak to a client, because I might not know the ins and outs of the technology, but I know how to use it, and I can go and get the right people in on those things. I know how to solve problems and how to solve client problems, doing it in different ways. So it's about kind of just bringing all that together, and I'm there to join those dots up in that sense.
So you did end up in IT effectively after the,
Yeah, I mean, you
massive
still
going
get
where
people going,
fundamentally there's still some.
can you make my Outlook fix? And I'm like, no. You still get a bit of that, but it's a little bit hearts and minds, isn't it? And it's taking away that whole kind of field of dreams. If you build it, will they come? You're there to give them a kick and push them, whilst trying not to be Kevin Costner at the same time. It's that piece of getting them in the room and taking the fear away for the lawyers as well, as much as anything.
And the client's receptive to that kind of dual role of, partner and product innovator. And
It is, because it's, and I do it naturally with my own clients. That's part of it. But and there'll be some things I'll sit in and I haven't got a clue what, from a legal perspective, they are, but I don't need to, because I've got the client partners in who understand the law. It's about actually understanding the client problem, because fundamentally it's the same piece you're doing, isn't it? And then it's getting the people in that can help solve that. It's just making sure you've got the right people in the room at the right time. That's all I'm doing. And to be honest, it's an extension of what I already do, but just in a slightly more narrower sense, I guess.
well, if I'm honest with you, I always make it sound really easy to do those kind of things, but I think it's like a skill set to have. And I think those people who've got it don't always recognize quite, not everyone has that ability to kind of orchestrate those things and maybe set aside their fears about not knowing what they don't know.
It is, and I don't know. I think I'm very live to. I do know what I don't know, and I'm
Right.
quite happy to say that. That's fine. And then it's going to others and going, well, let's get the people in that do know those things. But what's the worst that can happen? I'm very big on that. It's a safe space, really, isn't it? The world's not going to end. Let's just ask the question and see what happens with it. And really, this is just about, again, how we service the client, how we do the work, how we make things more efficient for us. We have to do it, and we have to find different ways of doing those things. That's what this is just really about.
I think clients always appreciate that practical element of things, don't they? It's nice to have a bit of highfalutin technical knowledge chucked in for 2 or 3 minutes of the conversation, but fundamentally, you want to know: are you a safe pair of hands? Can you get this thing done?
Yeah, and the big thing is about, to bringing the client along on the journey with it. There's nothing worse than going, we've got this, here you go, you can have it. But, well, actually, what's keeping you awake at night? What's the problems you've got? Or, this is what's causing your litigation risk. This is what your, compensation spend's going on. Well, let's start unpicking that. What is the cause of it? And let's try and put a solution in that stops it in the first place. Because, if we can get that sorted, you're not going to have that problem. That's much, much more valuable to them than us coming at the end going, okay, well, we'll deal with your claim. Let's stop that claim before it even happens. That's really what we should be trying to do with the clients, is fix the problem at source. Not, you don't need me at the end of it. We should be getting there before that even happens. So it's about trying to do that kind of work with them as well.
Amazing. Just thinking across that career, because this has been a few years now, what's the biggest lesson you've learned and what prompted you to learn it?
I do think, I mean, well, I think there's two things really. I think one is that thing of what's the worst that can happen. You just have to have a go. There's very little we can't fix, you know?
Mm.
There isn't, yeah, and it's being willing to just jump in on that. And I think that the second thing, and I remember this very, very early on, when I was a trainee, and it may well have been in my first season, I think it was we know this job's hard. It absolutely is. Every job is hard, but we know the pressure is that I think in this job you have to have something outside of here, because when it's tough in here, you go outside of it. When it's tough outside of it, you come in here. It's only when they're bad in both senses. This is when I think this job gets really hard. Same time when it's hard at home. If they're both hard, that's when you struggle. It's having one from the other, I think, to split the two out. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned in this, and always trying to quite key to get that into junior people when they come through, is you make sure you walk away from this at 5 o'clock, 5:30. And equally, if things are not great outside, we'll make sure that work here is somewhere that you have that space, then that you can actually just breathe as well, and that's a space for you. Having that distinction.
Where do you go and decompress? What do you do outside of work then that gets you that space?
Well, at the moment, it's this bloody LinkedIn thing, isn't it? That's what's taking me and giving me that's the problem you've caused in the last year or so. But it's just it doesn't need to be anything. It just needs to be somewhere, doesn't it? Is the thing, I think, is just, and I think I'm quite good at, I don't take it home with me. I'm very good at, it'll still be there tomorrow, and I don't carry it. I don't stress with it. It'll still be here. There's nothing I can do about it. So for me, it's more I think having that mental resilience of just going that it'll leave it, walk away. That's the biggest. That's the way I can do it. Just leave it. It'll still be here.
Tell us a bit about maybe some role models or some characters as well that you've come across. Like, who or what inspires you in the profession?
Yeah, I've been trying to think as to who. I think I've been really fortunate. I've had quite a lot of good people that I've worked with.
Right.
Pretty much from day one, I've fallen really lucky. I haven't really come across anyone that I could say I had a bad experience. I've had a lot of good people, and I still do. I still work with good people, senior and junior. For me, I look up and down as to the people I work with, and I've been good. I work with some brilliant clients as well. That's a big part of what I do. I think for me, what inspires me, I think, is the fact about when you make a genuine difference and it feels like you make a difference on something. So, I talked before that a lot of what for me is about solving client problems. I think I'm acutely aware that, the client comes to you because they have a problem, they need help with something, or actually it might just be they want to sound something off with you, particularly in the HR context, or, an internal legal context. When they come to us, they might know the answer, but they just want that reassurance. They just want to sound it off with you. But ultimately, you're helping them get from A to B. I think if you make that difference with them and it feels like you've made that difference, particularly, again, the law is the easy bit. They might even know the law anyway. What they really want is that comfort and to get them from A to B with it. I think if you feel like you're doing that, for me, that's the bit that I kind of take a bit of inspiration from and go, actually, that's why you're doing this. That's what makes it worthwhile, is you make that difference, and actually you're doing that with us, because you could go anywhere for that, to be honest. That is not lost on me in the slightest. If you get the sense of it's the relationship, it's the investment, and actually they're trusting you with that, that's the real important piece.
I think we're seeing an evolution of kind of the legal sector understanding that that's okay. I was talking to someone over the last couple of days about how AI is going to affect us, and I just think that relationship point, that chemistry point, is going to be the game. Like in 3 years' time, it's going to be the main part, if it's not already, right?
I think it is. I mean, it's always been the central part for me, and I think it's something I've always invested in from day one. And I've seen that bear fruit. You build that relationship, people move on, they progress, they will take you with them. And even if they start off junior, they will progress at some stage. You can say about AI and other technologies, it's still the people element that will come through in all of this, because that's what they still will need us for. There's still someone on the other end of that doing something with the outputs of it, that will make a decision somewhere, and or probably more realistically will hold a budget, or have a yes or a no on a procurement side or something. So no, I think fundamentally it is the relationship piece, and that again, I'm an employment lawyer and I work with HR, so I'm very much a people person of what I deal with. So I guess I see that maybe a little bit more in focus than other areas, but it's all about the relationship. It has to be that's you know why you don't come to me for the law. You can get that anywhere. You're coming to me for the confidence and the support that I give you as the person. That's what fundamentally this relationship's about.
Amazing. Okay. Tell me something you wish you'd known when you were starting out. What do you know now that you wish you'd known when you were starting out?
Oof, that's a hard one. Um, I think I wish I'd kind of had the confidence in myself that I probably have now. So I wish I'd
Right.
known that I'd had that. So um, I'm if you look at Jon 17 years ago to Jon now, they're much more self-confident in the work context. We've had that conversation elsewhere. Than the Jon in that sense, and that is obviously that comes with things. But I think knowing that what I can do, what I'm capable of doing, and that confidence in myself piece, I think would be the one thing that I wish I'd known. Does that need to have come over time? Maybe. So maybe I wouldn't have had it anyway. Just naturally growing into what I do and the progression and the experience that comes with it. I think that's the one thing probably is could I have made more of it earlier on? Perhaps. Could I have done more with it? Don't know. But I think if I look at who I am and how I am now, you do think, what could I have been a little bit more different with that? Could I have been a little bit more in different areas with things? Probably, I think is that's the one thing I do think actually there's a confidence now that maybe didn't have then.
Combining that with what you said earlier, though, I think what I'm hearing is for those people who are starting out, maybe a bit earlier in their career, that maybe being a bit more confident and maybe being willing to do things, even if you don't know all the answers, and take a go at something. Sure, with the protections and safeguards in place of having a good training sponsor and things like that as well. But fun, you jumped in the car and went to Luton. You took on a role that you didn't know what you were doing Friday to Monday. I think so. There's something there, isn't there? That I think means it kind of pays off when you take a chance or something.
I think it absolutely is that, and I mean, there is probably more now opportunity and more support. And I mean, it's a different world, isn't it? 20 years ago to where we are now with things. But and,
Definitely.
and I think I was willing to do the bigger thing maybe and do that. And I jump into an employment tribunal, and you think back some of the things you do, and you're like, oh my god, probably should never have done that. I think I was willing to do maybe the bigger work piece. Maybe could have done the slightly smaller Jon as the lawyer for my own development piece. Maybe there's more in that sense, but again, maybe I had to go and fling myself to Luton, go and do a 10-day employment tribunal, make a fool of myself. You probably had to go and do those things to then naturally get to where I am. Is where I think some of those things come from.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's come across in your LinkedIn that people are maybe professionally or personally jealous of a little bit is your ability to combine humor with the kind of expertise
Mm.
side of things as well. And I wanted to explore that with you a bit. Did you always use humor in kind of like in the workplace? I mean, I know you're from the Wirral rather than Liverpool, but there's a sense of like, there's always a sense that there is a bit of humor throughout the workplace within certain parts of the country and definitely Liverpudlians as well.
Yeah, um, I think so. I think it's getting the balance, and then it's finding the right moment. Um, Biggest problems I have is I think my mind is a little bit too quick at times. So I will read something, or someone will say something, or I'll see something, and I'll have a comment, or I'll have something to go back with, and it's completely the wrong time or the wrong forum, or it'll be the wrong thing to do with it. And I have it with the LinkedIn thing. I'll have a comment ready to post, and then I'll be like, oh, no, 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 or I'll delete it because I'm like, this is the one that gets me cancelled. I'm horrific if you go to see like comedy or something because I get the punchline before. It comes with the job, doesn't it? We're just conditioned with what we do to assimilate information quickly and turn it over. So I've always been quite good at looking at things and coming up with something quickly. I think it's getting the delivery and the timing and the tone is the trick to it. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I think it's been the timing has been the bit then that takes the development piece. But I think there's always been something around feeding that in. When you do training with clients, you present. I can't just stand up and do really boring employment law. No one wants to hear about that. I'm sorry. And you just lose an audience really quickly with that. So it's about lacing something into it that is going to get you, a little bit more engagement and stuff. So it's building that in. And let's face it, it's employment law. It's I used to say it's like Jeremy Kyle come to life, but people starting to realize not know what that is anymore. I need to find something a little bit more up to date. But it is though, isn't it? It's employment law. It's people, it's lives, it's car crash. So there's plenty in what we do. You can, to a degree, bring to life. There's some stuff, of course, extremely, careful with how you deal with it because it's very sensitive. But it's an interesting subject we deal with. So there's a natural way in, I guess, with what we do to bring that to life, a little bit of humour. But yeah, I think it's always been there. It's just navigating through it. And I've had plenty of times I've said something on a call and it's been the wrong time to do it. And there's just silence and you're just like, I really shouldn't have said that. Or I really struggle to keep a straight face. That's the worst thing. I don't have a poker face. That's not a good thing.
I mean, all I'd observe, having worked for these managing partners and leadership teams over the years, is, if I look to those people who are on the biggest accounts and working with the biggest clients, they might not be, stand-up comedians, but they always use humour, like somewhere in their working day. When they use it to diffuse the most difficult moments, they use it when clients are struggling with their most difficult matters as well. And I've seen some people who build millions a year, and they've got the sense to kind of bring in that sense of humour a bit here and there as well. So I think it's also a leadership quality, humour as well.
I think it's for me. I think it goes to the point of, again, I know I keep saying this, but it's a real important value of, you can get the legal bit, you can get that. It's whether you want to work with me.
Yeah.
If you want to come and be part of my team, what's it like to work at Weightmans? You need to see the reality of it. I mean, I'm sitting here going, I really should have bled the background. You can see the amount of crap on these shelves behind me. But that's what it is. I'm not going to fill it full of really important law books, because it's not what it's like. You need to see the reality of what this is. Just the person. It's the person that you're going to get. It's the kind of law firm you're going to work with if you come to Weightmans. This is the reality of it. There will be humour to that, but that's just who we are. That, to me, is the most important part of this, because anyone can give you the law, but it's how we're going to do that with you. That's the really important part of all this.
Authentic. Final question. If you had done another area of law, like it's still in private practice, but if you'd done another area of law, which one would it have been and why?
I really struggle with this because I didn't even know I was going to be an employment lawyer. So
no, I just wonder what you might have accidentally done otherwise.
No, and do you know why I say that? Because I do sometimes think back and go, if I hadn't gone on that secondment, where was I going next? And then where was I going on qualification? And I have a slight fear of no idea. There are things occasionally that pop up, and we've got a fantastic regulatory team at Weightmans, and some of the stuff they do, I do think that looks fascinating what they do in there. And I think actually it's interesting. Again, it might be the people element that comes to that attracts me. I think that looks really interesting. There's some things I just and I won't, because I have to work with those people, but no. But I do have that fear of, I don't actually know what else I would be doing if I hadn't found this to be as a vocation. I don't know, but for Luton, I don't know where I was going next. And it's that, you make the most of the opportunity, but I genuinely don't know what other area of law I'd have fallen back into. I may have gone back towards the police piece because, I found that genuinely interesting, and again, that talked to lived experience, but I don't know. I really don't know what else this could have been, in all honesty.
Well, employment law's game. It's someone else's loss. We just don't know whose it is. So
no, absolutely. Or I could have fallen out of it completely, but then you're like, well, actually, I don't know. It's interesting though. Yeah.
Not worth thinking about, maybe. There we go.
No, maybe not. Well, unless I go too far with something, and then we'll find out, because I'll be back to square one. Yeah.
Be a linked influencer professionally.
I've told you, if I can monetize it, unboxing is the way we need to go with this. If we can find something to unbox,
if people could send Jon some gifts, he'd quite happily unbox them. I think he's got a new theory about how to do it though. He wants to do it quickly. He hasn't got time for your slow unboxing.
Unbox them in 6-minute units. I will unbox anything online in a 6-minute unit for you. Please send it.
I think you should be very careful what you wish for there.
I'll try anything. Send it to me and I'll unbox it for you.
There we go. Jon, thank you for being a superstar on this episode of But Is It Legal? And for those of you who've watched this, made it this far, thank you for joining us as well. If you don't follow Jon already on LinkedIn, you should, because he's hilariously funny, and I think is the kind of person that we regularly use to model what other people might do on LinkedIn and how they present themselves as well. He's influenced on that platform and in other places too. If you like what you've heard, please give us a subscribe, ring the bell. We're on the variety of different platforms as you'd expect, Spotify and YouTube and Podbeam and everything as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And Jon, good man, thanks for joining us as well.